Hello, my name is Cooper Duke. I'm the Occupational Safety Coordinator in the Environmental Health and Safety Department here at OSU. And today we're going to be talking about lead awareness for non-lead workers. Here's some of the objectives of today's training. We're going to be talking about what lead is, some of the products that can contain lead, where lead is located, and some of the health effects related to lead exposure, and then how we can identify lead. So what is lead? Lead is an elemental metal. It cannot be destroyed. It can only be made smaller. It's bluish gray in color, and it's a heavy metal at room temperature. So here's some reasons why lead is used. It can prevent corrosion, kills mold and mildew. It's malleable, it's strong, it blocks radiation, blocks sound, and can be used as a drying agent. So what products commonly use lead? Where can it commonly be found? Used to, it was found in gasoline, but this was phased out beginning in about the 80s. It's used in smelting. Lead batteries obviously contain lead, and that can be 25 to 78% of all lead that's actually used in the United States. It can be found in those batteries. Lead used to be in paints and coatings. You could still find it, but these would have been applied before 1978. You can find lead in solder, in auto manufacturing, some printing. You can find it in ammunition, and old fishing sinkers contain lead too. And so why is lead a problem? Like I said, it can't be destroyed. It also can't be removed from the body. This is a chronic and also an acute poison. It does damage to a developing nervous system, so it can really cause problems in kids. Here's some history with lead. In the late 1950s, paint manufacturers started to reduce lead content in most paint for residential use. And then in 1978, the CPSC limits the paint for residential use to 600 parts per million, which is essentially lead-free paint. You can still find lead paint for non-residential use. It's still sold. It's not nearly as popular as it was before 1978. So here's a whole bunch of places where lead is found. We've kind of gone over some of it, but here's some more sources. As you can see, lead solder pipes. You can find it in paint pre-1978. Mining and smelting can be found in, it was found in gas pre-1988. And things that it can contaminate. It can contaminate drinking water, food, and it can be in the dust, soil. So what is lead paint? In paint, lead is used as a pigment with lead chromate. This is chrome yellow. And then also white lead. Those are the most common of the lead-based paint pigment. Lead is also added to paint for speed drying. This also increases durability, and it retains a fresh appearance and resists moisture, which prevents the corrosion. Although lead improves the paint's performance, it is still extremely toxic to living organisms. So where is this lead-based paint found? Homes built before 1959, it was everywhere. Inside, outside, windowsills, all coatings. Lead was very popular in the paint before then. Homes built between 1950 and 1960, it's probably going to be outside. It might be on the inside, but it's probably going to be on your trims, doors, windows, kitchens, bathrooms, etc. And then a little bit later, from 1960 to 1978, it's a lot less likely to be inside. So if there's paint that was applied before 1978, you kind of just stay safe with it, assume that there is lead in the paint, take the proper measures to protect ourselves from that lead. Where can I find lead on campus? Lead-based paint lead contaminated dust and soil, lead in water pipe solder, painted surfaces, and glaze in windows. Now, these have been phased out, but not completely phased out, so you can still find it under several layers of paint. There might be that first layer of paint from 1970 that still has lead in it. So you gotta watch for it. So here are some health hazards related to lead. We'll go into more depth. Here's how it can enter the body. Inhalation, breathing lead fumes or dust. This is the most common route of entry in the workplace. And then ingestion, swallowing lead, dust, food, cigarettes. Here's some signs and symptoms of lead poisoning. In children, you can see it: loss of appetite, vomiting, diarrhea, cramps. And then it can cause learning problems, constipation, difficulty sleeping, and anemia. In adults, it's kind of similar, but a little bit different. Symptoms may include some stomach pain, fatigue, decreased libido, headache, irritability, muscle or joint pain. Here's some adverse effects of lead exposure in children. It can really affect children's learning disabilities, language and behavioral problems. It can lower their IQ, their attention deficit disorder, or it can cause attention deficit disorder, cause hearing loss, anemia, muscle weakness, damage to the nervous system and kidneys. In adults, it's a little bit different, but similar again, just including hypertension, hearing loss, infertility, anemia, and damage to the nervous system and kidneys. Here's some chronic health effects from lead exposure. During prolonged exposure, over a long period of time, many body systems can be affected. Brain, kidney, muscles, bones, blood-forming organs, and reproductive systems. Here's a graphic of some toxic effects of lead. It can slow down your growth, starting at 1, reduce growth. It can damage, cause brain problems and nerve damage. It can cause hearing loss. And then speech, language, and behavior problems. It can cause high blood pressure, kidney damage, digestive problems, and reproductive problems. Here's some more chronic health effects. Like I said, reproductive systems of men and women can be affected from lead exposure. It can cause impotence and sterility in men. It can cause miscarriages and stillbirth in women who are exposed, or husbands who are exposed to lead. This can be passed on. Some chronic health effects of children born from parents who are exposed to excessive lead are more likely to have birth defects, developmental delays, intellectual disabilities, behavioral disorders, and it can even sometimes cause death during the first year of childhood, unfortunately. Here's some effects of high exposure in the body. This will be severe damage to blood-forming nervous system, urinary, and reproductive systems. Cause loss of appetite, metallic taste in your mouth, anxiety, constipation. The list goes on. There's lots of effects from high exposure in the body, as you can see on this slide here. Hypertension, lead exposure has been consistently associated with increases in blood pressure in studies conducted in both workers and the general population. Decreased kidney function. This is low to moderate levels of lead exposure can cause this. It's also associated with adverse changes in kidney function. And the association may be even worse in people who have had other risk factors for kidney disease, such as hypertension or diabetes. Here's some acute health effects that can happen right after exposure to lead. And acute health effects only appear when the worker is exposed to an extremely high amount of lead. This can cause a disorder of disease of the brain. This may develop quickly, followed by seizures, a coma, and even death from cardiorespiratory arrest. Again, this is highly unusual, but it's not impossible to get the extremely high amounts of lead. So these are not as common. Here's a couple charts of the systems that we're talking about getting impacted from lead exposure. This can affect your nervous system and brain, leading to headaches, irritability, memory loss, weakness in arms and legs. It can also affect your heart, circulatory system, your bone marrow. This will lead you to be weaker and more tired. It'll affect your digestive system, or can affect your digestive system, causing nausea, diarrhea, some pain in your gut, lack of appetite. It can also affect your kidneys and reproductive system, like I said. High blood pressure, kidney failure can also lead to death. In men, there'll be decreased sex drive. Same for women. It can cause infertility. So how can we protect yourself from lead exposure? Make sure this stuff does not happen. Always wear a dust mask when you're exposed to dust, especially while sanding or scraping surfaces. This is just will eliminate the possibility, or at least greatly reduce the possibility of exposure to lead. Remember, inhalation is a very popular route of exposure to lead. So wearing a dust mask will help minimize that. Shower as soon as possible after you're working in a dusty, dirty environment. Do not take home any contaminants home to your family. And never eat where you're working in a dusty environment. Always work where it's well ventilated. So here we're going to confirm the presence or non-presence of lead-containing materials. So lead identification. You can always determine if paint contains lead prior to disturbing that paint. And this can be done through documentation or testing. Department personnel must contact the OSU Facilities Management Central Trades Asbestos Department, and there's their number, 744-7154, for assistance with lead identification before disturbing the area. That's who you want to go to here on campus if you've got a concern or just want to be safe. Make sure that you're not disturbing a surface that has lead in it. That group there can come out and test for you. So here's some prevention for lead poisoning for the non-lead worker. For people who don't work around lead, but you need to make sure that you're still preventing the exposure. And minimizing the exposure to lead is key to minimizing the health effects, of course. And can you find lead outside of campus? Absolutely. If your home was built before 1978, before they phased out the use of lead-based paint, you could find it there. Some hobbies where you can find lead is stained glass, home remodeling, which you can run into old painted surfaces, recreational target shooting, melting lead for fishing weights, and lead glaze in ceramics. You can also include backyard scrap, metal recycling, leaded crystal tableware, pewter cookware, folk remedies, mine tailings, and some beauty products. You can find it there. So here are some takeaways from today's training. Hopefully you've got a good grasp of these ideas of what lead is. We looked at the products that were containing lead, where you can find the lead, and then we went over the health effects, the extreme health effects of lead exposure, and then how we can go about identifying lead. Remember, if you've got a concern, it's better to be safe and get it tested before you disturb that area. You do not want to be exposed to lead. And here are just some general questions just included here. So we covered this a little bit, but just where can I find lead? You can find it in lots of places. It's not just on campus. It's not just in paint. It's in glazing compounds for windows, some cosmetics, gasoline before 1988. This is kind of a reminder of what we went over, but in lead-based paint, old lead fishing sinkers, Some old coffee cups even contain lead, and then there are many other places. And like we covered a little bit, but didn't go into detail of this, but can lead be passed on to an unborn child from a pregnant mother? Yes, it can be. It can be passed from the mother to the unborn child. And like we went over earlier, but can lead be removed from the body? No, it cannot be removed from the body, unfortunately. So we definitely want to make sure that you're not exposed to it and do not get any lead into your body. Here at OSU in the Environmental Health and Safety Department, these are some of our programs and services. And if you have any questions about those services, feel free to reach out to me. This is my contact information. I'd be happy to answer any questions related to this training or any of the programs and services that we offer here at Environmental Health and Safety at Oklahoma State. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you very much.